The Galactic Council station hung in space like a jeweled crown. 13 species had built this place over 200 years, a symbol of their power and control over the galaxy. The station held enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The council members believed nothing in the known universe could challenge them. Stood on the bridge of the UES Vanguard and watched the station grow larger through the viewport. He was 52 years old and had spent the last 30 years studying every scrap of information Earth could find about the Galactic Council. He knew their weaknesses. He knew their arrogance. He knew they would underestimate humanity because every advanced species always did. The Vanguard was not a beautiful ship. It looked like a weapon because it was a weapon. The hull was angular and dark, covered in heat-resistant plating that could withstand attacks that would vaporize ordinary ships. Inside, every system was redundant. If one power core failed, 4 others would take over. If the main weapons system was destroyed, secondary systems could still fire. The ship was built for one mission, and one mission only, to make the Galactic Council understand that Earth would not be pushed around. Martinez sat at the tactical station beside. She had been studying Galactic Council military patterns for 15 years. She knew how their ships moved, how their fleets coordinated, and more importantly, where they made mistakes. Was 38 years old and had the kind of sharp mind that could see patterns others missed. She was the reason the Vanguard had a fighting chance. The communication system crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking in the standard trade language that the Galactic Council used. The voice belonged to Council Ambassador Vex, who had issued the ultimatum to Earth 1 month ago. The ultimatum was simple and direct. Humans would abandon all colonial expansion in the known galaxy, or the Galactic Council would destroy every human ship they found. They expected Earth to obey. Earth had sent the Vanguard instead. "Unidentified vessel," the ambassador said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "You are approaching a restricted zone. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." Keyed the communication system. His voice was calm and steady. "This is Captain of the UES Vanguard, representing the human species of Earth. We are here to discuss the Council's ultimatum." There was a long silence. Could imagine the confusion on the Council station. They had expected a diplomatic ship, or perhaps a small military vessel that would attempt to negotiate from a position of weakness. What they saw was the Vanguard, and every sensor on the station would tell them the ship was heavily armed. "You bring one ship?" Vex asked, and there was genuine confusion in his voice. "You think one ship can challenge the Galactic Council?" "No," said. "I think one ship can show you that Earth is not a species to be threatened." Watch the sensor screens. The Council was mobilizing its fleet. Warships were undocking from the station and moving into attack formation. The numbers were overwhelming. 300 ships, each one larger and more heavily armed than the Vanguard. The Council was not taking any chances. Watch the fleet movements with the calm of a man who had already accepted his own death. The Vanguard would not leave this place. Everyone on the bridge knew this. They had volunteered for a suicide mission. The only question was whether they could do enough damage to make Earth's point clear before they died. "All hands to battle stations," said quietly. "Bring all weapons online." The crew of the Vanguard moved like dancers in a choreographed performance. Every person had trained for this moment for years. The engineers checked the power systems. The weapon operators loaded targeting data into the fire control computers. The pilots gripped their controls and waited for orders. The medical teams prepared for casualties that they knew would come. The Council fleet advanced toward the Vanguard. They moved with the confidence of an overwhelming force. They had destroyed thousands of ships in their long history. They had never met an opponent that could stand against their combined power. The Vanguard did not move to attack. Instead, it maintained its course, steady and unyielding, like a blade moving toward a target. "They are hailing us again," said. Nodded. "Let them speak." "This is your final warning," Vex said, his voice sharper now, tinged with something that might have been concern. "You will power down your weapons and surrender, or we will open fire. You have 30 seconds to comply." Looked at the countdown showing on the main screen. 30 seconds until 300 ships opened fire on the Vanguard. 30 seconds until the greatest military power in the known galaxy attempted to crush a single human ship. Said, "Prepare the adaptive defense matrix. When they fire, I want that shield recalibrating itself every half-second. Learn their attack patterns. Show them that we are not like any species they have ever fought." Done, said. Her fingers moved across the console, making final adjustments to systems that had never been tested in actual combat. 10 seconds remained. Thought about Earth. 8 billion people lived on that world. Some of them knew what he was doing. Most of them did not. They went about their lives, going to work, raising families, playing games, creating art, building dreams. They had no idea that their entire future depended on what happened in the next few minutes. The Council had sent an ultimatum because they believed humanity was weak. They believed humans were primitive creatures who could be ignored or destroyed without consequence. They believed that superior technology meant superior power. They were about to learn otherwise. 5 seconds. Leaned back in his chair. He was ready, his crew was ready, the Vanguard was ready. The Galactic Council would learn that underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake any species could make. The timer reached 0. 300 ships opened fire at once. Thousands of weapons unleashed their fury at a single target. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The galaxy itself seemed to scream with the force of the assault. The Vanguard's shields flared to life, bright and brilliant against the onslaught. The adaptive defense matrix kicked into operation, and the shield pattern shifted and changed, learning from each attack, adapting to each new weapon. The ship shook and twisted, taking impacts that should have torn it apart, but the hull held firm. Gripped the arms of his command chair and smiled. The battle had begun. Earth's message was being delivered in fire and steel, and no matter what happened next, the galaxy would never forget the day that humanity sent the Vanguard to show them what true determination looked like. The Council fleet suffered its first loss 8 minutes into the battle. A destroyer took a direct hit from one of the Vanguard's kinetic rounds and simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, moving with purpose and power. The next moment it was fragments and expanding gases drifting through space. The Council commanders could not believe what they were seeing. In their entire history, no single ship had ever destroyed one of theirs in combat. The Galactic Council had crushed every opponent through the weight of their numbers and the superiority of their technology. They had never needed to adapt because they had never faced anything that required adaptation. Martinez watched the enemy fleet with the intensity of a predator studying wounded prey. Her fingers flew across the tactical console, feeding target data to the Vanguard's weapon systems. She had studied the weak points of Council ships for years. Every species had vulnerabilities. Every design had flaws. Every strength was also a weakness if you knew where to look. The battleships relied on distributed power systems that could reroute energy quickly. But that same system meant that destroying one power coupling could cascade through the entire network. Had the fire control computers target those specific points. The warships had powerful shields that could absorb tremendous punishment, but their point defense systems were designed to handle multiple small targets, not a single large one moving at high speed. Sent the Vanguard's heavy rounds straight down their throat. The cruisers were fast and maneuverable, and they tried to surround the Vanguard and attack from multiple angles. But humans had built the Vanguard with weapons that could track and fire in any direction. The ship was designed to be surrounded. It was designed to fight odds that should have been impossible. Controlled the battle from the command center like a master chess player moving pieces across a board. He had studied military strategy his entire life. He knew the theories of ancient Earth military commanders. He understood the principles that allowed smaller forces to defeat larger ones: speed, surprise, concentration of force at the enemy's weakest points, adaptation when the enemy changed tactics, refusal to surrender even when the situation seemed hopeless. The Vanguard took damage. Weapons panels exploded. Hull breaches opened. Sections of the ship lost power. Crew members died at their stations, but the ship kept fighting. The humans who served on the Vanguard were willing to die for their species. They knew what was at stake. If humanity failed here, then Earth would eventually be conquered or destroyed. But if the Vanguard succeeded in showing the Council that humanity was not an easy target, then Earth might survive and even thrive. Dr. Maya was the chief engineer on the Vanguard. She raced through the corridors of the ship with a repair team, moving from one damage point to another. A main power line had been cut. They rerouted the power through secondary systems. A weapons system went offline. They manually fired the backup systems. A section of hull began to crack under pressure. They sealed the section and worked to reinforce the damaged area. Maya had not slept in 36 hours, and her hands shook from exhaustion and stimulant medications, but she did not stop working. The ship was being torn apart around her, but every repair she made meant the Vanguard could keep fighting. 2 hours into the battle, the Vanguard had destroyed 47 Council ships. The Council fleet had suffered devastating losses. For the first time in their history, they were losing a war. The Council commanders attempted to reorganize their remaining forces. They tried to use numerical superiority to overwhelm the Vanguard through sheer volume of firepower. They attempted tactical maneuvers that had worked against every other opponent they had ever faced. Nothing worked. Had studied thousands of hours of recorded combat data from previous galactic conflicts. He knew what the Council would try because he knew their training doctrine, their standard tactics, and the way their military commanders thought. The Vanguard was always one step ahead. The Council ships did not fight as individuals. They fought as a coordinated fleet, with communications networks that linked them together. But those networks also meant that if you could understand their communication patterns, you could predict their movements. Had cracked their basic tactical codes within the first 10 minutes of combat. She fed false data into the Council's networks, making their ships move in ways that put them in the Vanguard's firing range. When the Council tried to coordinate surprise attacks, the Vanguard's sensors already detected the movement and took evasive action. When the Council sent reinforcements to defend a damaged section of their fleet, the Vanguard's guns were waiting for them. 4 hours into the battle, the Council fleet began to retreat. The commanders had finally accepted that they could not win. The Vanguard had destroyed 93 of their ships. The remaining fleet was broken and disorganized. Did not pursue the retreating Council fleet. The Vanguard had suffered terrible damage. The shields were failing. Multiple weapons systems were offline. Hull integrity was compromised in 3 sections, but the ship was still flying and its primary objective had been accomplished. Earth had sent one warship to face the Galactic Council. That one ship had defeated the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. The message was simple and clear. Humanity was not a species to be threatened. Humanity was not a species to be conquered. Humanity was a force that the Galactic Council would have to respect. Looked at, both of them understood that the battle was not over. It had only just begun. "Get me a communication line to the Council station," said quietly. Worked the console. After a moment she nodded. Keyed the communication system. His voice was steady and calm despite the chaos around him. The observation deck of the UES Vanguard had been designed for the crew to watch the stars during their journey through space. Now it served as a meeting place between two species that had just tried to destroy each other. The window looked down on the damaged Council fleet below. Some ships were still burning. Some were listing badly. Some were dead in space, unable to move. Stood at the window and waited for the Council delegation to arrive. He wore a simple uniform, no medals, no decorations. Stood beside him in the same simple uniform. They looked like soldiers because they were soldiers. They did not pretend to be diplomats or politicians. They came from a species that had learned to be honest about what it was. Ambassador Vex entered the observation deck with 2 guards. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with skin that shimmered between blue and purple. His eyes were large and intelligent. He had led the military forces against the Vanguard, and now he had to face the captain of the ship that had defeated his fleet. Vex looked out the window at his damaged ships. His expression did not change, but could see something shift in this posture. The ambassador had finally understood the reality of the situation. "You have won," Vex said simply. "But you understand what comes next. You understand that you cannot destroy the entire Galactic Council with one ship." "I understand perfectly," replied. "I also understand that the Galactic Council believed they could destroy Earth with threats and intimidation. I understand that the Council sent us an ultimatum without bothering to learn anything about who we are. I understand that you made the mistake of assuming that superior numbers and superior firepower meant superior strength." Turned away from the window and faced Vex directly. "Let me tell you what the Council actually understands now," continued. "You understand that humanity will not surrender. You understand that we will fight even when the odds are impossible. You understand that we were willing to send one ship against 300 of yours, knowing that we might all die. And you understand that we won." Vex's eyes narrowed. One victory does not make a species strong. "No," said her voice sharp. "But it shows a species that does not break. It shows a species that does not know when to quit. It shows a species that will fight for survival with everything it has." And it shows that superior technology is not the same as superior tactics, superior will, or superior adaptability. The observation deck fell silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the Vanguard's damaged life support systems working to keep the ship alive. Vex was a soldier. He understood war and honor and the cost of victory. He had commanded fleets and fought enemies across the galaxy, and he had never seen anything like what the humans had done. One ship against 300. Unimaginable odds, impossible victory. "What does Earth want?" Vex asked finally. Moved back to the window, he looked down at the damaged Council fleet. "Earth wants what every species wants," said. "We want the right to exist. We want the right to expand into space without being threatened. We want a seat at the Council table as equals, not as subjects. We want to be able to build our civilization without fear of destruction. And we want the Galactic Council to understand that any threat against Earth will be met with the same response that you received today." "The Council will not accept this," Vex said. "Then the Council will learn the same lesson that you learned today," replied. "Humanity does not surrender. We do not negotiate from weakness. We do not accept ultimatums. We accept only respect or resistance." Vex looked at the human captain for a long moment, though was considering his words carefully. The ambassador was a strategist, and strategists understood the long-term implications of conflicts. "If I bring this proposal to the Council," Vex said slowly, "what assurance do I have that Earth will not attack again? What stops your species from coming back with more ships?" "Nothing," said honestly. "There is nothing that stops us. We could come back. We could build an entire fleet and challenge the Council's dominance across the galaxy. We could take what we want through force instead of negotiation. We choose not to do that because we are willing to make peace with species that treat us as equals. But we are also willing to make war with species that threaten us." Stepped closer to Vex. "Your choice is simple," continued. "You can recognize Earth as an independent power with the right to expand into space, or you can fight us again and lose more ships. You can negotiate with us as equals, or you can watch your fleet burn. The Council's mistake was in not understanding what humans are. We are a species that survived an ice age by making fire. We survived plagues by working together. We survived wars by refusing to surrender. We are the children of a harsh world, and we learned to be tough." Vex looked back at the damaged fleet below. Ships that had been powerful and proud an hour ago were now broken and burning. Some of them would never fly again. Some of the crews inside those ships were dead. The ambassador understood that if the Council tried to fight Earth again, there would be more death, more destruction, and no guarantee of victory. "I will bring your words to the Council," Vex said finally, "but I do not know what they will decide." "Then tell them this," said. "Tell them that Earth is not a threat if they choose not to be threatened. Tell them that we will trade with them, build relationships with them, and work beside them to create a better galaxy. But tell them also that if they try to destroy us, we will destroy them. Tell them that humanity is a species worth knowing and a species worth respecting. And tell them that the age of the Galactic Council's absolute dominance is over." Vex turned and left the observation deck without another word. He had his orders. He would return to the Council and deliver the human message. What happened next would depend on whether the Council was wise enough to accept a new reality or foolish enough to challenge it again. And watch the ambassador leave. "They will attack again," said quietly. "Probably," agreed. "But not today. Today they need time to understand what happened. Today they need to accept that their power is not absolute. And by the time they are ready to attack again, Earth will be ready." Looked out at the stars beyond the window. Somewhere out there was Earth, and 8 billion people waiting for the Vanguard to return home with news of victory. The Council chamber was tense. The 13 species that made up the Galactic Council sat in their designated positions, waiting for Ambassador Vex to give his report. The Council had ruled over this section of the galaxy for 200 years. They had never experienced a defeat like the one that had just occurred. The representative was furious. He stood before the Council and demanded that they gather every available ship and launch a final assault against the Vanguard. He demanded that they teach humanity a lesson for daring to challenge the Council's authority. The representative wanted to negotiate. There were traders, and traders understood that dead customers cannot buy goods. They argued that peace with Earth would be profitable in the long term. The representative sat quietly, observing and listening to the other Council members. There was the oldest species in the Council. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had seen powerful civilizations destroyed by their own arrogance. The representative was named, and he had lived for 300 years. He understood patterns that younger species could not see. Finally spoke. His voice was old and weary, but it carried the weight of centuries of experience. "We have made a catastrophic error," said to the assembled council. "We have underestimated humanity." The representative interrupted, his voice sharp with anger. "That ship was a fluke. We outnumbered them 93 ships to 1. A simple coordinated attack will destroy them." Raised a hand and the chamber fell silent. They had that effect on people. When you had lived for 300 years and had survived every challenge that the galaxy could throw at you, your voice carried authority. "You are thinking like a warrior," said to the representative. "I am thinking like a strategist, and the strategy I see is this. The humans sent one ship. They knew the odds. They knew they might die, and they won not because of luck. They won because they adapted faster than we did. They won because their weapons were designed to counter our weapons. They won because they studied us carefully and found our weaknesses." Paused, letting his words sink into the minds of the council members. "The question before us is not whether we can defeat the Vanguard in the next battle," continued. "The question is whether we can afford to fight a war with humanity, because if we attack them again, they will send more ships, and each one will be smarter than the last. Each one will have learned from the Vanguard's experience. Each one will be designed specifically to counter whatever tactics we use. Within 10 years, humanity will have built a fleet that rivals our own. Within 20 years, they will have surpassed us." The representative was about to speak, but continued. "I have seen this pattern before," he said. "The species that survive in this galaxy are not the ones with the most power. The species that survive are the ones that can adapt and change. Humanity has demonstrated both of these qualities in abundance. They are not a species that will accept domination. They are a species that will fight for survival with everything they have. And they are a species that will continue to improve and adapt as they gain experience." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Voices rose from every direction. The demanded war, the demanded trade, the demanded that the humans be expelled from the galaxy. The sat calmly and waited for the storm to pass. When the noise finally died down, the representative spoke again. His voice was cold and dangerous. "If the council chooses to negotiate with the humans, I withdraw the military forces from the council's defense system. They will not support cowardice." His eyes fixed on the representative. For a moment, the ancient said nothing, and in that silence, every council member understood what was happening. They were threatening to leave the council if their demands for war were not met. "They are free to make whatever choices they believe are best for their species," said finally. "But they will support a peaceful solution. And I believe that and the others will also recognize the wisdom in this approach." The vote was taken. 12 species voted to recognize Earth's independence. Only the voted against. In the history of the Galactic Council, no species had ever stood alone against the combined will of the other members. The representative stood up and walked out of the chamber. His guards followed him. The council had made its decision. But as watched the leave, the ancient understood something that the other council members did not. They would not accept this defeat. They would go away and plan in secret. They would build ships in hidden facilities. They would wait for a moment of weakness and strike. The council had made peace with humanity, but they had declared war. In the weeks that followed, tried to warn the other council members. He told them that they could not be trusted. He told them that they should prepare for betrayal. But the other species were tired of conflict. They wanted to focus on trade and diplomacy and the expansion of their influence. No one listened to the old. Sat in his chambers and wrote a message. The message was addressed to Captain M. The Vanguard hung in space near the Earth orbital station. The ship was damaged by the battles it had fought. Repair crews worked around the clock to restore damaged systems. The crew members who had survived the fight against the Galactic Council's fleet were heroes to their people. But they were also exhausted, traumatized, and aware that the cost of their victory had been high. Stood in the observation deck one more time. He looked out at Earth, at the blue and green world that was home to 8 billion humans. For weeks after the battle, there had been celebration and parades and speeches from government leaders around the world, but knew the truth. The celebration was premature. The peace was fragile. The threat was not over. Entered the observation deck and stood beside her captain. She was recovering from wounds sustained during the battle. The doctors said she would walk with a limp for the rest of her life, but did not seem to care. She had survived. Her crew had mostly survived, and they had won. The council sent an official message, said, "They recognize our independence. They offer us trade agreements and a seat at the council table. They want peace." Endo asked. "They have gone silent," replied. "We have no communication from them. The other council members are also uncertain. Some say they will accept the council's decision. Others say they are planning something." Turned away from the window, he looked at directly. "They are planning something," said. "I know it the way you know that a predator is hunting you. I feel it in my bones. They are not a species that accepts defeat. They will come back." Nodded, she had expected this answer. "When they come back, we will be ready," said. "Yes," replied. "But we need to be more than ready. We need to be superior. We need to build ships that are faster, stronger, and smarter than anything that can construct. We need to make Earth so militarily powerful that any species that threatens us will think twice before attacking." Moved to the communication console in the observation deck. He opened a channel to the Earth government. The message he sent was not a report of victory. It was a warning and a call to action. "This is Captain," said, his voice steady and calm. "The UES Vanguard has successfully defended Earth's independence against the Galactic Council. However, a new threat is emerging. The Empire has shown that they will not accept the Council's decision. They are likely to attack again, and the next attack will be better planned and more dangerous than the first." Paused, letting his words sink in. "I am recommending that Earth immediately begin the construction of a new fleet," continued. "Not one ship, not 10 ships, hundreds of ships, each one armed with the weapons systems we have tested in this battle, each one improved and upgraded based on what we have learned. Within 5 years, I want Earth to have the ability to defend not just our colony worlds, but to project power throughout the galaxy." The message was sent to every government on Earth. It was broadcast to news networks and media outlets. Within hours, the entire world knew what their captain had said. The war was not over. The fight for humanity's place in the galaxy was only just beginning. In the weeks that followed, Earth mobilized. Resources that had been used for other purposes were redirected toward military production. Young people volunteered for the military in record numbers. Scientists and engineers worked on improved weapons and defensive systems. The entire planet focused on one goal, making humanity strong enough to survive in a dangerous galaxy. But knew something else that he had not told anyone, that would come back not in 5 years, but much sooner. And when they came, they would bring weapons that Earth had never encountered. They would bring ships that were larger and more powerful than anything humanity had built. They would come with the intention of ending the human species entirely. Had asked for 5 years to prepare, but he knew that he might only get 5 months. One night, as he was reviewing battle simulations on his personal console, received a message from Ambassador Vex. They had sent the message through secure channels, taking great risk in doing so. "Captain," the message began, "this message is sent in violation of law and honor, but I am sending it because I have come to respect your species. The Empire has ordered the construction of a weapon that will destroy all human life in this sector of the galaxy. The weapon is nearly complete. It will be finished in 6 months. When it is finished, they will use it to erase humanity from existence. You must prepare. You must be ready. Because when they attack, they will come with the intention of finishing what they started." The message ended with a warning about where the weapon was being constructed and technical specifications for the weapon itself. Information that Vex had no way of knowing that would need. Read the message 3 times. Then he deleted it from his personal console and burned it from the secure systems. No one could know that he had received this message. No one could know that I had betrayed his own species to warn the humans. Stood and walked back to the observation deck. He looked out at Earth again. He thought about 8 billion people sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware that a weapon of mass destruction was being built in secret, unaware that their species was about to face the greatest test of survival that any human had ever known. Joined him again, as if she knew that he needed her there. "They are building something," said quietly, "something that will kill us all if we do not stop them." Did not ask for details. She had served long enough with to know that there were things that did not need to be explained. "Then we will stop them," said simply. Smiled, it was a tired smile, but it was real. "We will try," said. That is all humanity can ever do. We will try, we will fight, we will refuse to surrender, and perhaps in the end that will be enough. The Vanguard hung in space above Earth, a battered and reminder that humanity had already learned to fight. The ship would be repaired. The crew would be trained for new battles, and would prepare his species for the greatest conflict they had ever known. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened a species that had learned to survive on a harsh. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity did not break. Humanity did not surrender. Humanity would fight for survival with every weapon they had and every weapon they could build. The Vanguard had won its first battle, but the real war was still to come. Arcus of the UES Vanguard, in the message, warned the human captain about the threat. He told that the Council had recognized Earth's independence, but that the peace would not last. He told to prepare his people for war because war was coming. The message was sent through hidden channels, through traders and merchants who dealt in secrets and information. By the time the message reached Earth, knew that they would already be building their weapons of mass destruction. By the time the message reached, the old understood that the true conflict between humanity and the Galactic Council was only just beginning. The first battle had been won, but the war itself lay ahead. The Vanguard had proven something to the galaxy that day, and that proof would change everything. Despite the wounds he had seen his crew suffer, despite the impossible odds that his ship had just overcome. "This is Captain of the UES Vanguard," he said. "To the Galactic Council, I believe you wanted to negotiate." The Vanguard fired back.